Isn't it kind of, I don't know where to begin this question, but I always wanted to ask you this. Your thoughts, you said when you came on things that you didn't want to end up being there's a joke, half joke, that NPR is expert on former communist countries, what happens in communist countries. But I wonder what your thoughts are when you think about it. I mean, you grew up in Romania, you have comments on these things, you've been to many places, and communism began as this trying to create an egalitarian, better world. I mean, that was what fueled it in the beginning and made many young people communists for a while to say, well, we can create a better world, and then you realize that wasn't going to be that way. What are your thoughts on that, and where all that fits into our world to now? Because now the world has gone to maybe the opposite, which is that the corporate capital world has kind of taken over where the communists left off, and I wonder what your thoughts are about all that.
Well, you know, this has been a subject that I've been mulling over for a long time. I never bought the rhetoric of the system when I lived in Romania because they forced it on us, and so we had Marxist classes, you know. So I read a fair amount of Marx, and we're always presented with an idealized version of the society that we're living in and that we're supposed to reach. So we were having socialism at the time, but eventually we were going to get to communism. But the socialism that we were having was in large part an official lie, because it's what the newspapers told us, and what we're being officially told didn't correspond to anything real. You know, so our parents and the grown-ups were afraid to speak too loudly about the real conditions because they were afraid of the police, of the secret police. So that I think that the communist state started with a terror mechanism that was there right in the beginning. And I think that Lenin didn't quite figure out how to implement a Marxist society before he figured out how to yield the terror tool, how to create a secret police. And then what happened, I think, quite early on, it probably happened around 1922, I mean, right after the revolution, was that he was working his way toward the kind of totalitarianism that was inevitable because of the forces that he unleashed. He unleashed the secret police. He unleashed a kind of anarchic cruelty that took a very simple view of class war and class struggle, and they took it to mean you just kill everybody who looks rich and might be rich. So in 1922 he actually exiled a whole lot of the intellectuals. There's a book that just came out, actually, written with documents from the new open archives of the Communist Party in Moscow, and it's about Lenin and exile of the intellectuals. So people like Berdyaev and quite a few philosophers that were, they didn't, you know, they weren't killed outright like a lot of the priests, but they were sent off to Germany, mostly on the old boat. Because it's funny, because in a weird way that mirrors the action of J. Edgar Hoover, young Hoover, exiling the anarchists, Emma Goldman, and
around World War I, and
putting them on a ship and sending them to Russia, which was Hoover's first official job. So, but it was when Lenin exiled the intellectuals, he was basing crudely his action on the Tsarist form of punishment, which was exile, because he'd been in exile, he'd been in jail when he was an illegal communist in Russia, and these are all Tsarist laws that they found themselves adopting. So the thing got away from the utopians very fast, and the anarchists and the socialists and the communists who still believed in the original ideas of the revolution were very quickly marginalized by the bureaucratic structure in the Bolshevik party. And then by the time it got to me, I mean, by the time the Russians imported communism into Romania, they didn't have a real base in any kind of popular movement. They were just importing totalitarianism with tanks. I think by 1968, when the Soviets invaded Czechoslovakia,
right.
The system was dead. You know, it was finished, both in the Soviet Union and in those countries. But I think inertia kept it going until about 1989 or 91. So, but you know, I've always had this kind of idealism and utopianism that was in me, because I always thought that, you know, these guys got it wrong, but there's got to be a way for people to do better than just be greedy and exploitative. So part of the reason why I made Road Scholar, the film, in '92, after the collapse of state communism in Europe, was that I wanted to see if there are little communities that survived based on utopian and communist principles, and there were quite a few of them, and they were thriving.
And they're thriving.
Yeah, but a lot of them were based on religious principles, and so they were communist in that they held property in common, and they had certain principles of fraternity and sharing that were purely communistic, but they were based on religion and pacifism.